Hello, Josh.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Oh no, so I'm sorry I'm a bit late. I thought it was 6:30.
Oh, no problem at all. I'm very glad to be able to do this.
Oh, me too.
Oh, cool. Well, again, it's great to be able to talk to you and be able to talk about this fantastic new album coming out at the end of next month with On Golden Verse. I've just discovered this because of this album, because of this opportunity to be able to talk to you, and I'm absolutely blown away by the music that you're able to achieve. It's got almost every genre that I love mixed together. It feels cohesive, even though it is quite diverse. It tackles a lot of hard issues that really need to be talked about in some way, shape, or form. And it honestly, I think it's going to be one of my favorite albums of the year, easily.
Oh, that's really sweet of you to say. Thank you very much.
Oh, not a problem. So, with that in mind, I mean, what was it like to start working on this new album?
Um, starting it actually was I was starting it. I was very full of energy. Um, it was after the first one, and I was really excited to write something else. But as the old story is that the past couple of years have been not great for pretty much everyone. So it's kind of I guess it's pretty tiring as an interviewer to keep hearing it, and but it's an inevitability, and I think it makes for me it made the writing process really agonizing because you spend all this time trying to invest into creating these songs, but you're never quite sure if it's ever gonna happen. um and the album's been sat there for years now, so it's been a long time coming, and yeah, it's a relief to have it near completion, but the process is are you a musician yourself?
Yes, I am. I
You
do
know,
play drums.
yeah, so there we go. You've got probably the hardest tracking job around, right?
Oh,
um
yes.
the tracking is pure hell, I would say, because it's just so, until you get to the finishing touches and maybe the vocals and the leads, it's really difficult to tell if it's actually going to be any good. um or maybe that's just me, but I think I found it very difficult in the end. um but I'm proud with the result, and I'm happy I got through it, to be honest.
Thinking about that, was there like any particular challenges? Like, did you have to make any changes to the songs or anything in the production or the equipment or anything that goes into that?
I'm I mean, I have the songs pretty well formed um, when they're demoed up. There was about the last half of the album didn't have any vocals on, but I had a set idea of what they would probably be. And but apart from that, it was all fairly well, it was pretty sculpted. Um, but I do like to, when I get into the studio with James and Scott, I don't like to be too precious because they'll have other ideas, and very often James's drum ideas are going to be better than my drum ideas. So I'm happy to kind of let them sort of take it forth. And with Scott, I mean, I think there was one song where he wanted to add like a kind of bridge because he felt it needed it. And I was happy. I'm not, as much as I am a bit of a control freak, I'm not someone who doesn't listen to people who are better than me. Um, if it, actually, most of the time I just want to hear what it sounds like. So in that sense, I'm kind of happy to embrace the ideas a lot of the time.
And I'm so glad to hear that too. I mean, obviously, like you've mentioned, I mean, you have almost everything set up in your mind, and you have this ideal of what you want the songs, what you want the album, what you want the vision to be. But being able to collaborate with other people where they might have like one particular idea that will take a good idea and make it a great idea, it's always great to be able to try those things out and see if they really do work out for the best.
Yeah, and I would actually like to do more of it. I would actually. I think it would be really healthy to do, have more of a team of people to do it. I think. So maybe on the next one, that would be something to consider. Because I think people, particularly in metal, actually, I think a lot of people let's say like someone like Justin Bieber or Kanye West or something, they'll be like, oh, they don't really play any of the instruments, or they don't play their own song or write their own songs because they've got like 50 writers or something. But I've got a lot of appreciation for the person kind of sat there, almost like the creative director of it all, who can take all those ideas and kind of play with them and organize them to make those kind of final formed pieces. So I'm not of the school of thought where I'm like, well, you need to be really good at sweep picking to make a good metal song. I don't think that's, I mean, obviously something like Symphony X, you need it, but I don't think a good like technical ability makes good songwriting. But how you wield it is different. In fact, sometimes I think, particularly with singers, if you're really, really technical, it can just be too much. And you start to lose a song because it's like, where's the direction? It just seems like a bit of a technical exercise. So yeah, I'm more maybe it's my lack of ability actually that makes me think like this. But I also think if I wanted more technical ability and I thought it was really worth it, I'd probably spend more time trying to sweep pick or something.
Well, I can definitely say, at least from the listener standpoint, the new fan standpoint, I love the direction that the band currently is in right now. I mean, you're able to explore all these different territories, and while it's not necessarily always filled with like sweat peaking or gravity blasts or the strangest, most obtrusive vocal abilities. It's for the songs. You're writing for the songs to make sure that they're as strong as they can be. And like you've hinted at so much, like arrangement is so important with that. Like what instrument's going to be where, how is it going to be played, what ideas can be done with it, and focusing so much of that ability on making sure the song is the best it can be rather than the most top level musicianship is such an important thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of us have probably got loads of good riffs sat there. Um, I've I've got years of them, either in my brain or on hard drives. But I really try not to let a riff determine the song. I know that kind of sounds stupid, but if the song's going in a certain way, and I'm like, oh, I've also got this really good riff, I don't think it's a good idea to kind of force it in there if it's not going to work. Um, Maybe that's because I don't have the patience to try and get it there, but I think I probably use my body more than I use my mind when it comes to songwriting. I try to feel it more than I think it.
And I definitely hear that when I listen to the albums because I really feel like there's a lot of feel behind the album. Like I don't hear anything on this album that feels forced or something that feels like it was just like had to be pushed in there for a particular reason. It feels very authentic. I mean, of course, there's a lot of diversity that's going along with it too. I mean, when you're able to hit all these different styles and you're able to hit all these different lyrical themes, like it could feel like it's a large hodgepodge of everything going on, but everything feels so cohesive together, and that's what's so impressive about everything going on.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I do try. Maybe I think that is the effort goes into that to try and not overwhelm the song or try not to have too much of a good thing all the time because then it's difficult to value the good bit. You almost need to have maybe this is a bit too basic, but you kind of need to have a bad bit to make a good bit sound good in a way, or not like bad, but it needs to be stripped away so something has impact at some point.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's so many different writing techniques that can really go into it. And, it's like one idea that you might have is like a chorus might end up being a verse instead, or one idea that you might have for vocals might end up being an instrumental bridge, or there's so many different ways that you can tackle everything. But as long as you got that feel behind it, as long as you got the right people being able to work behind it, it's eventually going to work itself out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So thinking about that as well too, I mean, obviously, with the music and the instrumentation behind it, there's so much impressive work going on between everyone involved. But the lyrics is something that really does strike me very hard. Especially the song "The Distance" is something I can very, very much relate to. I mean, what was it like working on the lyrics on this album?
I don't. I find lyrics agonizing, um, because it's very difficult to find the line. I don't particularly like songs that are too they drop topical references or they're too literal. Um, and particularly seeing as this album is, I guess, it's broadly about the abuses of power, um, as that we that we kind of push on the world as the human race. Um, I don't want to be known for trying to force an issue on someone or be a polemicist and start arguments with people. It's more a collection of observations in a way. The distance, in particular, is a sensitive and complicated issue, but it's something that I thought about myself because I think I would say that most people in their most upset times in their life have probably had a suicidal ideation. Um, and I think the distance itself is not necessarily about suicidal ideation. It's about the moment between the idea and the action, and being able to recognize it, and therefore the more you can recognize it, the more you could probably prevent it. Um, because I think it's such a transient, when someone commits suicide, I mean, I guess there is all sorts, but I think it's a transient feeling because it's such a potent surge of anger, of sadness that happens incrementally. It could happen every day, it could happen once a week, it could happen once a month, once a year, once every decade. But I think it there's a point there, even if you plan to do it, depending on the reason, of course, because if you're very terminally ill and you decide to commit suicide, is a very different reason for being upset with the direction your life has taken. I would say that it's recognizing that it is a transient feeling in some respects, and that if we did manage to talk about it without shame and without fear of being judged by people who would potentially try and make you feel guilty about even thinking of these things, I think we would see it a lot less. And the song isn't literal in any way. The lyrics of it are, they run and they fall. And the idea of that is that you're always running away from it, but you could fall. And so it's not really singing directly about committing suicide. I think that's just it's too cheap. And I think it's better to sort of suggest things. And people they might not even pick up on the topic. And perhaps I've just made it worse by talking about the topic. But I think for me, it just felt like an important issue when it comes to the idea and the action, and trying to find the line and hopefully avoiding it.
And again, speaking from a very personal reference, like I can see it from both sides because there's parts of it I can very much relate to because it is something that I've been struggling with for this year being 23 years now, I've been dealing with the thoughts back and forth in several attempts on my life. So I can relate to it when I hear those lyrics, but I also love the fact that, again, like, you aren't like completely straight ahead with it. Like, you are a little more ambiguous about the lyrical concepts, and like you just mentioned, like, some people might not even pick up on those things, and they're able to maybe interpret the song in a different way. And you can hear that throughout the entire album as well too, with the different types of power and abuse that comes with that, where it's like you somewhat hint at a particular idea, but people are able to take their own message away from it. And I think that's such a great way to be able to go about the lyrical concepts.
I think it. First of all, Josh, let me just. I'm very sorry to hear that you've struggled so much, because it is it's an inescapable feeling a lot of the time, and it can be very and the societal pressure of it all as well, like feeling the guilt of even feeling it yourself when you can't help it is an extraordinary weight, I would say. And I'm glad you're still here to, and then we can talk about it as well. Not that I'm trying to be I don't, my role is not, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but it's like human to human. I think I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you very much for that.
No, no. I really do mean it, and I don't know you. I don't. But I think we do all need to extend that olive branch for people and be a bit more understanding, because this is my observation in that song is, I'm not globally correct on this thing. It's just an observation I've had, and I'm aware of the responsibility of even publishing something like this is it's risky, because you can't speak on behalf of everyone, and that's not my intention. I think it's more just finding a way to have a dialogue, rather than not guilting people or judging people. But in terms of just circling back a bit, I think in terms of lyric writing for this album, there are some pretty, the intentions that are locked away in my head for each of the songs is, they're definitely not literal, and yeah, it's because I think it makes it less obvious, and it makes it less divisive with people. I'm happy to talk about the meanings of songs for sure, but I don't want to. I almost don't want to take a stand, because I think the issues are so complicated, but I also think it's good to talk and think about. It's just very difficult to do that in a media space, I think, and indeed a song. So I'm just kind of happy to have some source feelings to generate some imagery from, in a way.
Yeah, and I guess that's just the way I kind of look at it. It's like I'm very open about my mental health struggles. Like I try to do that because I feel like it's just like, it's just from my perspective. I'll never be able to speak for someone else, because I'll never be able to live their life. I can only go from my own life experience. And you can use that for like all the different topics that you cover on this album. It's just your thoughts, the way that you go about things, the way that it goes through your mind. And you could be right about something, you could be wrong about something, but it's just what you're taking away from it. And there's so many people that can take other people's opinions from it. I mean, you don't need to necessarily take every opinion to heart, but it's just like, at least try to understand other people's opinions, why they think the way they do, and what you can learn from those things. And that's definitely one thing I can take away from this album, at least lyrically, is just like, agree, disagree. I'm able to learn new ideas and new perspectives, which is so important in life.
I think that's it, really. It's trying to view things not just from one or two sides. It's trying to find the 360-degree perspective on something, which is difficult to do with a lot of subjects. And that's because some of the I think because some of the sides so blatantly outweigh the others, it can almost appear thoughtless to consider the other sides, because it feels like you're ignoring the issue. Which again is why none of these lyrics are very literal, because I don't. The last thing it sounds like I'm pandering to a specific type of crowd, but actually it's my own personal want of not trying to appear thoughtless, I think.
And that makes so much sense. I mean, and even just thinking about like everything that we've all experienced over the last few years, I mean, it's really given us a new perspective, whether it's more negative or positive connotation. Like, there's so much that we've learned over the last few years about the human condition and the way that we treat each other, and the powers that be, government, religion, our own mental thoughts. There's so many things that can go into it, and there's so many different perspectives that you can learn from. But it's just, there's things that we're always going to have mean something to us. And if you are able to find an art form where you're able to at least talk about your perspective of it, whether you're trying to preach the word, or you're just trying to get people to think about it, or you're just trying to express your own thoughts, there's so many different ways that you can go about it. But it's important to keep that authenticity, which again I hear throughout this entire album. I hear musically, lyrically, everything is authentic here. And it doesn't feel, at least to me, it doesn't feel like you're trying to preach anything. It doesn't feel like you're telling people to be one way or the other. You're just giving your perspective.
Absolutely, yeah. I have no desire to change anyone's opinion, really. I think it would be nice if people could talk to each other more, but and the album won't do that. But I think that's my personal standpoint. So that's probably as much as I would hope from people, not to change their allegiance to anything, but to maybe have more calm conversation about things. The writing these albums, I think I said it on the last album, which is a much sadder album. It's a cathartic thing, but I have to say, I don't, even though it's cathartic, I don't think it's healed me. It just feels good to do something that's productive around something that makes you feel sad. But I don't think it actually healed anything. I think that's probably just time and experience.
To an extent, that absolutely is. But I also think, just like getting those feelings out emotionally for whatever you're feeling, whatever the subject is. I mean, rather than it feeling like, if it does hurt you inside, not being able to talk about these issues, whether it's through an art form, whether it's with someone you trust, whatever the case is, if you feel like you can't get that out and you're able to express it that way through an art form, I do feel that to be a kind of a healing, even if it doesn't like heal the mental or physical wound that's going on. It's not hurting you as much, and that's that great cathartic feeling behind it, because it can stop hurting you as much.
Yes, I think it can. It's almost pain is kind of like nuclear fallout. There's the initial explosion, the mushroom cloud, but then there's years of like radiation that just lives on, and the half-life of it is as strong as whatever the situation was that caused it. That's it. So in that sense, like when the explosion's happening and you try and do something productive to counteract it, I think that's very helpful. But the hole that it causes is still kind of there, I would say. And honestly, I don't find it unhealthy to realize that it won't heal, because I think if I wouldn't consider myself depressed, not clinically anyway. I definitely have sad moments in life, but I think one of the things that stops me from doing it is almost not expecting healing, and expecting that expecting it actually to just keep hurting, and that's okay. And just finding a way to sort of fill in you need to find ways of distraction or outweighing it. Maybe I think that's how I try and fight it in a sense. I'm not saying I've had not had low points because I really have, as I think we all have. But I try not to expect a perfect life. A happy one would be nice though, but it's
Oh, for
permanent.
sure. Yeah. But you know that is so important, and I'm glad that you can have an outlet like sermon to be able to show that off, and you know whether it has just like that cathartic feeling of dealing with that nuclear fallout, which I think is a fantastic metaphorical concept to be able to uh, describe mental, emotional, or sometimes physical pain. You know, just being able to describe all of that. But when you have an outlet like that, when you're able to, you know, just get those feelings out there rather than just having them dwell inside you, that can help so much. And when you're creating the music that you want to make, whether or doing other outside stuff outside of music, when you're able to find something to latch onto, to enjoy, to not dwell inside yourself, that is so important. And you know, it's great to see that you know, whether it's something that's like a 180 from the lyrical content that you talk about, or you are like you talk about on this album, you know, where it's like you hint at it, but you're not trying to give a message. You know, you're dealing with it, you're finding other ways to be able to deal with it, and you're still able to move forward and progress in your life, which is so important.
Yeah, you know, I guess with yourself, you're a drummer, right? So,
Yes.
and when you're one of the best things about that kind of thing is you're applying your time to basically like crafting a skill, and it makes you feel valuable, right?
Oh yes.
You otherwise, you know, perhaps other things aren't as good in life that you have to inevitably do, you know, like work or a job or something that's just, it's not as fun, it doesn't make you feel as valuable, and it's not the perfect way, but actually the drumming thing is the thing that gives you value in yourself, in your identity. And I think those things are the most important things maybe in life, because I know so many people growing up where their parents didn't encourage anything like that because their kid was good at maths or not good at anything at all, and they didn't encourage them to do anything else. And it's a real shame, and now they're scared to even try because they think they're not good at things. um so there's such a lot of value in tied up into the sense of self with something that could, I think I would bet to say that a lot of, maybe not so much now, but parents back in the day always, you know, they'd be like, you can't do art for a living, you can't be a musician for a living, because they just thought that there was four jobs in the world, and that was lawyer, doctor, and accountant. and and it's a shame, because I think it really makes people feel valuable with their own life.
Absolutely. And whether you can do that full time, whether able to do it part time, or you're able to just do it when you have free time, I mean, just being able to have that out there and being able to show that other side of yourself is so important. And, you know, like for myself, whenever I get to play behind my drums, it's such a great feeling being able to get certain kinds of emotions out. When I'm able to do interviews like this, it shows another case of my uh, mental and emotional state, being able to talk about the music that I care about and being able to talk about some deep subjects like we've been able to do here. I love it when I can do an interview like this where we can get really deep on something, or any other kind of work. You know, it's just like able to show off a different side, but you know, it's just trying to be well rounded like that, where you can live the life that you need to live, but being able to still appreciate what you have around you, do what you want to do in life, even if you have to do things that you don't want to do to be in order to survive. It's all important about having that balance, and yeah, just finding that for yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that is just so important.
Yeah, and I guess it must make you feel kind of less alone in it. Would that be correct in saying, like, having these conversations?
Oh, absolutely. Like wasn't necessarily going to bring this up, but even yesterday I almost took an attempt on my life. And
What
one
was
thing that
the
did keep me going was the fact that I had a couple interviews today. This is my last one for the day, but not following through on what I could have done yesterday helped me to appreciate this more because I do get to have that connection. Whether I get to keep talking to you for every subsequent album, whether this is the only time I get to talk to you, or just being able to talk about this album and have like a good, roughly half-hour conversation. It's just like it's good to have that. Be able to escape from any problems that I have going on just for a little bit and be able to talk about music, talk about some deep meaning, being able to just share life experiences. It really does help someone feel less alone for someone like myself. Absolutely.
you 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 can cut, obviously you can chop this up as much as you need to, because I feel like it's, you might be fine and it might be very open and I'm happy to discuss it with you. What what was the, because I want to talk to you about this, and
Oh,
I think
sure.
I guess you haven't discussed this with anyone yet, or maybe you have.
Not on a deep level, other than I almost did it. I mean, that's really as far as I've gone telling anyone about it, is that I got close to doing it. But it's it was a lot of childhood abuse, of family trauma that built up with me all the way up through a couple weeks ago. Like things that I've been trying to escape in my life, very abusive family members, and just trying to, like you were talking about, like you can't live this certain part of your life because you're not going to amount to anything. You have to do this in order for me to love you. These kind of just like really bad things that for a certain generation they were told that was the way it was supposed to be, but for another generation where it's like, well, then why would I even try? And
Well,
I've always been like a trying to defy all of that, trying to do what I want to do with my life. And one thing here is just with doing interviews, talking about the music that I love to talk about. Like I've been doing this since 2011, and this is my 870th interview that I've gotten to do. And
that's good.
I I love the fact that I'm able to keep doing this. Like whether it's a brand new band, whether it's a band that's been around for 50 years, I just love being able to talk to musicians. Whether I talk to drummers, whether I talk to other musicians, whether I talk to non-musicians, just like talking about music, talk about life, and just trying to escape the world for like a half hour or so. Being able to uh just just talk about some good music and try to promote something good, even if it's like deep and heavy with lyrical concepts or the music or whatever the case is. Just being able to escape that and just like, hey, sit down for here for like 20-30 minutes and escape the world for this amount of time and be able to hear about music.
You know, if you've done 800 of these, Josh, there's no way you are not valued, and you need to use that fuel that the people who don't believe in what you're doing around you. I think people who say no and tell you no, it's the greatest fuel ever for progress, because you've obviously proved them wrong already. And oh, sorry, my so sorry about that. My girlfriend called me and then got a nasty shock of seeing me in this mask, which she um, I felt like it was a really pivotal moment as well. But uh, yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
I just wanted to. I basically I don't know the events that really triggered the moment yesterday, but I would say that what you've done and achieved is quite clearly valuable to people, and you should not feel disheartened by people who've got smaller minds than yourself. And I I don't I don't know the potency of what you feel when something like that happens is beyond something that well, I it's not that I haven't experienced it. I think I just, I there are too many other factors for me, and I'm not done yet, I think. And I hope you're not too, to be honest.
Yeah, I do want to keep going, and that's one of the hardest things when it comes to especially being clinically diagnosed with depression and PTSD and
Yeah,
anxiety and all these different things is when they all come at you at once. And
yeah,
when you have life struggles on top of that, so you have priorities on top of that, when all of that happens, and then you have flashbacks from the past come back to start to attack you mentally, and then you have things from the past coming back in real form and affecting your way of life, like I've been dealing with for the last couple weeks with different family issues. Like all of it can come to be too much at once, and it just happened as I was about to fall asleep. Like all of
yeah.
a sudden, it just triggered in
Oh,
me that I feel like I almost needed to take an attempt, and it
well,
was not something that I wanted to
it,
happen at all. It wasn't like thought out or anything. It just kind of sprung up on me.
it's yeah, no, and it's particularly like I can imagine it when everything's when you're trying to go to sleep and when your brain is trying to be quiet, but actually what it does is ruminate on things, and it builds and builds and builds and imagines and imagines and imagines. And have you ever heard of the and I'm not this is in no way to devalue what you feel. Have you ever read Seneca?
I have not.
So Seneca is part of the Stoics, which is a really good school of philosophical thought that essentially what is the mo they're basically logical. They try to approach life with logic more than they do with emotion, which that's the struggle, because obviously they're constantly counteracting against emotion but trying to do so with logic. And one of the things that Seneca said, I think it's Seneca, I hope it is Seneca, because otherwise my point's going to be really, it's really going to fall flat. But he said that we suffer in our minds more than we do in our reality. And it made me think about my own, many of my own worries and upsets. You're dealing with PTSD, so things have happened to you, and everything, I guess, in your life now, it's very difficult to not think it's a mirror. A situation is mirroring what's happened in the past in a way, which is extraordinarily stressful. But I do think there's a nice reminder in there somewhere that a lot of what we think or worry about maybe isn't going to happen, even if, I think a lot of these things have happened to you. But when it comes to like the future things, the triggers. But then I guess escaping the past is difficult.
It is.
If maybe.
It is.
Um,
Um, Unfortunately, I'm just about to